Ukrainian agriculture wasn't something that many of us had really any idea of before this conflict started. Just explain to us how reliant we are on that country, not only in the UK, but also globally.
Yeah, so Ukraine has always been a big producer of agricultural commodities. So around about 30% of global wheat supplies come from Ukraine and Russia. Sunflower, about half of sunflower supplies to the world market comes from Ukraine, and fertilizer as well is a big issue. So Ukraine is maybe not been in the news until recently, but in terms of world commodity markets, it's always been a big player.
Not just the fact that they would ordinarily be exporting all of this grain to the rest of the world, but this is the time of year, isn't it, when they would be planting it. They would be providing the wheat for the following year, and that presumably is where this figure of 4 years comes from in terms of a potential food crisis.
That's right. So I think you've got the immediate effect where current supplies can't get out because of the blockage of ports, etc. But of course, one of the reasons why this crisis might be prolonged is because you can't get planting at the present time, which is going to have knock-on effects in future years. And even if the fields did come back into accessibility, there's issues about mines being there, etc. So part of the concern with Ukraine at the present time is not just that current prices have increased, but the production capacity in the future might be impacted by the current conflict, which will therefore have knock-on effects over longer periods of time.
Steve, has this situation caught the world napping in a sense? Because we've had this kind of corporate status quo controlling the world's food for years, as unregulated global markets and financial speculators, global food producers. Did we need a crystal ball to see this coming, Steve, or was it always an inevitability?
Well, one of the characteristics of commodity markets, world food markets, is that you get these occasional spikes. So if you look back to 2008 and 2011, we had this spike in world markets for many commodities, and that was often due to a confluence of events. But one of the things that we, in a sense, we don't learn, we know, but we don't learn from, is that these spikes that happen tend to be relatively short-lived. So they go up for some period of time, a relatively short period of time, but then we recover from them pretty quickly. I think what's different about this crisis is, given that it's a conflict and given the impact of the conflict, is that this spike or this rise in commodity prices might be much more prolonged than the spikes that we've had in the past. So having spikes in world food prices is not unusual, but then they tend to revert back to some more normal level. This one is a bit different because of the uncertainty about how long the conflict will last for and what our responses might be.